The golden morning light spilled across Fifth Avenue, casting long shadows over the bustling city. Luxe Boutique, with its gleaming glass facade and opulent displays, stood as a temple to indulgence, its name whispered among New York's elite. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of imported roses and the faint hum of classical music. Beneath the surface of its polished perfection, however, lay an unspoken hierarchy, one dictated by wealth, appearance, and the silent prejudices that thrived in the most unexpected places. Olivia Sinclair moved through the city with quiet confidence, her steps purposeful but unhurried. Harlem had been her home for years, a neighborhood that grounded her despite the dizzying success she had achieved. Her unassuming attire, a soft gray sweater, faded jeans, and well-loved sneakers, was a deliberate choice, a reflection of her belief that substance always outweighed style. Few would guess that this woman, blending so effortlessly into the crowd, had once been hailed as a tech prodigy, her innovations reshaping industries and amassing her a fortune that could rival the wealthiest families in Manhattan. The boutique's glass doors swung open with a faint chime as Olivia stepped inside, her gaze sweeping over the shimmering gowns and artful displays. Her niece's wedding was weeks away, and Olivia had promised herself she would find a dress worthy of the occasion. Yet, as her fingers brushed against the silk of a midnight blue gown, she felt the weight of an unspoken judgment. Gerald Whitmore, the boutique's manager, stood a few feet away, his sharp eyes narrowing as he took in her appearance. To him, Olivia was an anomaly, a customer who didn't fit the mold of Luxe's usual clientele. Her lack of designer labels and understated demeanor set off alarms in his mind, feeding the biases he carried like invisible baggage. Gerald's rise to his position had been swift, fueled by ambition and a carefully curated image of sophistication. But his polished exterior masked a deep insecurity, one that manifested in his need to categorize people by their outward appearances. To him, Olivia was a curiosity at best, an inconvenience at worst. The tension between them simmered beneath the store's glittering chandeliers, unnoticed by the other patrons who floated through the boutique like characters in a silent film. As Olivia continued to browse, her calm demeanor remained unshaken, though she could feel Gerald's gaze lingering. She had encountered this kind of scrutiny before, the quiet dismissal, the subtle shift in tone that spoke volumes. But Olivia was not one to be underestimated. Beneath her composed exterior lay a fierce intelligence and an unwavering belief in her own worth. She had built her empire from nothing, defying the odds and proving that success was not defined by the approval of others. The boutique's luxurious setting became a stage for an unspoken battle, one that would soon come to a head. Olivia's presence challenged the assumptions that Gerald and others like him clung to, forcing them to confront the uncomfortable truth that wealth and status were not always visible. The soft rustle of fabric and the muted conversations of other shoppers faded into the background as the tension between them grew, setting the stage for a confrontation that would reveal the cracks in Luxe Boutique's pristine facade. In this world of silk and crystal, where appearances reigned supreme, Olivia Sinclair was about to remind everyone that true elegance came not from the clothes one wore, but from the strength and integrity within. The story unfolding in Luxe Boutique was more than a clash of personalities. It was a quiet revolution, a challenge to the unspoken rules that govern this glittering microcosm of society. And as the morning sun continued its ascent, casting its golden light across the city, the first act of this tale was just beginning. The story unfolds in a sprawling archipelago shrouded in perpetual twilight, where the sun hovers on the horizon but never fully sets. The islands are connected by shimmering bridges of bioluminescent coral, and the air is thick with the hum of strange, winged creatures. The seas are alive with phosphorescent waves, and the land is dotted with ancient ruins that pulse faintly with forgotten magic. The inhabitants, a mix of humans and otherworldly beings, have adapted to the dim light, their eyes luminous and their skin etched with glowing patterns that reflect their lineage. At the center of the tale is Kale, a brooding cartographer with a mysterious past. Once a celebrated explorer, he has since retreated into isolation after the disappearance of his sister, Lyra, during an expedition to the uncharted Northern Isles haunted by guilt. Kale now spends his days mapping the islands in obsessive detail, searching for clues to her fate. His only companion is Naira, a sharp-tongued smuggler with a knack for navigating the treacherous waters. Though their relationship is fraught with tension, Naira remains loyal to Kale, driven by a debt she refuses to disclose. The third key figure is Arinder, a young mage exiled from the mainland for experimenting with forbidden magic. Arinder seeks redemption by uncovering the secrets of the ruins, believing they hold the key to restoring balance to the archipelago. His path crosses with Kale and Naira when a storm forces them to take refuge on the same island. Initially wary of one another, the trio forms an uneasy alliance after discovering a shared interest in the ruins and the mysteries they conceal. As they delve deeper into the ruins, they encounter Aelith, a sentient construct left behind by the civilization that once thrived in the archipelago. Aelith, whose crystalline form shifts and glows with an inner light, claims to hold fragments of knowledge about the ruins and the forces that threaten the islands. However, her fragmented memory and cryptic nature make her both a valuable ally and a potential liability. Her interactions with the group spark tension, as each member questions her true motives. The environment itself becomes a character in the story, its beauty masking hidden dangers. The islands are alive with shifting landscapes, where forests can transform into deserts overnight and rivers flow backward under certain moons. The group must navigate these unpredictable terrains while grappling with their own inner struggles. Kale seeks closure, Naira wrestles with her hidden past, and Arinder battles the temptation to use the very magic that led to his exile. Their journey is one of survival, discovery, and the fragile bonds forged in the face of the unknown. As Olivia stepped into Lux's boutique, her unassuming presence drew a dismissive glance from Gerald, whose superficial judgments masked his insecurities. But when a whispered exchange between staff revealed her staggering wealth, the facade of exclusivity began to crumble, setting off a chain of events that would expose Gerald's prejudice, ignite tensions among employees, and unravel secrets about the boutique's own corrupt practices. The small coastal town of Windmere buzzed with anticipation as the annual regatta approached. Among the townsfolk, 3 individuals stood out with distinct goals. Clara, a fiercely independent marine biologist, sought to protect the bay's fragile ecosystem from an impending real estate project. Ethan, a local fisherman struggling with dwindling catches, aimed to win the regatta's cash prize to save his family's boat. Meanwhile, Sophie, a journalist new to town, hoped to uncover the truth behind the shady dealings of the developers funding the event. Their paths crossed unexpectedly when Clara discovered that Ethan's fishing routes overlapped with the bay's endangered coral reefs. Tensions flared as Clara confronted him, accusing him of endangering the ecosystem, while Ethan defended his livelihood. Sophie, intrigued by their clash, began investigating the deeper connections between the developers and the town's economic struggles, sensing a story that could expose corruption. As Clara and Ethan reluctantly worked together to map out sustainable fishing zones, they began to understand each other's perspectives. Clara saw the desperation behind Ethan's choices, while Ethan recognized the importance of preserving the environment for future generations. Sophie, meanwhile, uncovered a series of suspicious permits granted to the developers, hinting at bribery within the town council. The trio's fragile alliance faced its first major obstacle when Clara's research equipment was sabotaged, setting back her efforts to prove the bay's ecological significance. Suspicion fell on the developers, but without evidence, they could do little. Ethan, feeling guilty for initially dismissing Clara's concerns, offered to help repair the equipment, strengthening their growing bond. As Sophie dug deeper, she found herself targeted by anonymous threats warning her to stop her investigation. Undeterred, she confided in Clara and Ethan, who vowed to support her. Together, they devised a plan to gather evidence against the developers while preparing for the regatta, which had become a symbol of their shared fight against exploitation. Amidst their struggles, personal dynamics began to shift. Clara and Ethan's bickering gave way to mutual respect, with hints of a deeper connection forming. Sophie, though initially an outsider, found herself embraced by the community as her determination to protect the town became evident. Their individual goals began to intertwine, setting the stage for a confrontation that would test their resolve and unity. The morning began like any other, with the hum of the town's routine echoing through its narrow streets. Shopkeepers opened their shutters, children hurried to school, and the scent of freshly baked bread wafted from the bakery. Yet, beneath the surface of this ordinary day, something simmered, a tension no one could quite place. It wasn't until the piercing wail of the church bell shattered the calm that the first ripple of unease spread through the community. The bell, reserved only for emergencies, hadn't rung in years. A crowd quickly gathered in the square, their faces etched with confusion and dread. Father Elias, usually composed and measured, stumbled out of the church, his robes disheveled and his voice trembling. "It's gone," he stammered, his eyes darting wildly. "The relic, it's been stolen." The sacred artifact, said to protect the town from misfortune, had vanished from its locked chamber. Panic set in as whispers of curses and omens swept through the crowd. Among the onlookers was Clara, a young historian visiting the town to study its archives. Her curiosity ignited, but so did her sense of responsibility. The relic's disappearance wasn't just a theft, it was a challenge to the town's very foundation. She couldn't ignore the fear in the villagers' eyes, nor the urgency in Father Elias's plea for help. Clara had no ties to the town, yet something about the situation pulled at her, compelling her to act. As the townspeople debated who could have committed such a brazen act, an old man stepped forward, his voice rasping with age and authority. "This isn't just theft," he warned. "It's a warning. The storm is coming." His cryptic words sent a shiver through the crowd, but before anyone could question him further, he retreated into the shadows. Clara's mind raced, piecing together fragments of local legends she'd read in the archives. Could the theft be connected to the ancient prophecy she dismissed as folklore? The mayor, desperate to restore order, announced a search party to recover the relic. Volunteers hesitated, their fear palpable. Clara, however, raised her hand, her voice steady despite the uncertainty. "I'll help," she declared, her resolve surprising even herself. She wasn't a hero, but she couldn't stand by and watch the town unravel. Her decision set the wheels in motion, drawing others to join her, each with their own motivations, fears, and secrets. As the group prepared to embark on their search, the first drops of rain began to fall, dark clouds gathering ominously overhead. The storm the old man had spoken of wasn't just metaphorical, it was real, and it was closing in. The theft of the relic had not only disrupted the town's peace but had also set into motion a chain of events that would test their courage, unravel hidden truths, and force them to confront a danger far greater than they had imagined. The Luxe Boutique buzzed with its usual morning energy as staff members hurried to perfect displays and adjust mannequins clad in couture. Beneath the polished surface, however, tension simmered. Among the employees, whispers had begun to circulate about Gerald Whitmore's management style. His penchant for favoritism and his sharp, often condescending remarks had created an atmosphere of unease. For some, his arrival as manager had signaled opportunity. For others, it was a daily reminder of the store's unspoken hierarchies. In the employee lounge, Elena Martinez, a young sales associate with dreams of becoming a fashion designer, adjusted her name tag. She had worked at Luxe Boutique for 3 years, balancing her job with night classes at a community college. Elena's talent for connecting with customers had earned her a loyal following, but she often found herself at odds with Gerald, who dismissed her as too ambitious for her own good. Today, she had been assigned to the front of the store, a coveted position that Gerald rarely granted her. She suspected it was less a reward and more an opportunity for him to scrutinize her performance. Meanwhile, in the boutique's private fitting room, a regular customer was causing a scene. Veronica Hastings, a socialite known for her extravagant spending and sharp tongue, was berating a junior employee over a perceived slight. "Do you even know who I am?" The employee, a timid young man named Marcus, stammered an apology, his hands trembling as he tried to hang up a dress. Gerald, hearing the commotion, strode into the room with a practiced smile, eager to placate Veronica while subtly undermining Marcus. "We'll handle this immediately, Mrs. Hastings," he said smoothly, casting a withering glance at the junior employee. Outside the boutique, Olivia paused to admire the window display. The gowns were exquisite, each one a testament to craftsmanship and artistry, but her eyes lingered on a deep emerald dress that seemed to shimmer like sunlight on water. It was perfect for her niece's wedding. Taking a deep breath, she stepped inside, the soft chime of the doorbell announcing her arrival. Elena was the first to notice Olivia. She greeted her warmly, her professional demeanor masking the curiosity sparked by Olivia's understated appearance. "Welcome to Luxe Boutique," Elena said, gesturing toward the racks of gowns. "Is there something specific I can help you find today?" Before Olivia could respond, Gerald appeared, his sharp eyes scanning her from head to toe. His smile was tight, almost mechanical. "Good morning," he said, his tone polite but distant. "Are you sure you're in the right place? Our collection is quite exclusive." Elena stiffened at his words, her instincts telling her that this encounter was about to take a turn. Olivia, however, remained composed. "I'm here to find a gown for a wedding," she replied, her voice steady. "I believe you have what I'm looking for." As Gerald exchanged a glance with Veronica Hastings, who had wandered into the showroom, a new subplot began to unfold. Veronica, intrigued by Olivia's presence, smirked and leaned toward Gerald. "I didn't realize Luxe Boutique had started offering charity cases," she whispered loudly enough for Elena and Olivia to hear. The tension in the room thickened, and Elena felt a surge of anger. She wanted to step in, to defend Olivia, but years of working under Gerald had taught her the consequences of speaking out. Olivia, however, met Veronica's gaze with quiet strength. "It's interesting," she said softly, "how some people wear their insecurities louder than their jewelry." The room fell silent, the weight of Olivia's words settling over everyone. Gerald's smile faltered, and Veronica's face flushed with indignation. Elena, unable to hide her admiration, felt a spark of hope. Perhaps this customer was different. Perhaps today would be the day someone stood up to the boutique's unspoken rules. As the morning unfolded, the boutique became a stage for a series of interconnected dramas. Marcus, still shaken from his earlier encounter with Veronica, found an unexpected ally in Elena, who encouraged him to stand his ground. Gerald, determined to maintain control, began plotting ways to regain the upper hand. And Olivia, with her unassuming grace, continued to navigate the boutique, her every action challenging the assumptions of those around her. Outside, the city moved on, oblivious to the unfolding tensions within Luxe Boutique. But for those inside, the day was shaping up to be anything but ordinary. What had begun as a routine morning was quickly becoming a reckoning, a collision of values, ambitions, and hidden truths that would leave no one untouched. The door to Luxe Boutique swung open with a soft chime, and Olivia Sinclair stepped inside. The contrast between her understated attire and the boutique's opulence was stark, but her stride was steady, her demeanor unshaken. She glanced around, taking in the gleaming marble floors, the golden racks lined with couture, and the staff, who moved with rehearsed precision. Her presence, however, did not go unnoticed. Gerald Whitmore, standing behind the counter, narrowed his eyes at her. To him, Olivia's casual outfit was a red flag, a signal that she didn't belong in his pristine domain. He straightened his tie, already preparing to dismiss her with the kind of condescension he reserved for those he deemed unworthy. Olivia approached a display of gowns, her fingers brushing lightly against the intricate beadwork of a dress that shimmered like starlight. She could already picture her niece walking down the aisle, radiant and joyful, and the thought brought a soft smile to her face. But before she could fully immerse herself in the moment, a voice cut through the air like a blade. "Ma'am," Gerald began, his tone clipped and icy, "perhaps you'd be more comfortable browsing our sale rack in the back." The comment hung in the air, drawing the attention of a nearby sales associate, Clara, whose eyes widened in silent protest. Clara had been working at Luxe Boutique for years, and while she had seen her fair share of difficult customers, she had also witnessed Gerald's growing arrogance since his promotion. She hesitated, torn between her loyalty to the store and her growing unease at Gerald's behavior. Olivia turned to face Gerald, her expression calm but her eyes sharp. "I'm quite comfortable here, thank you," she replied evenly. Her voice carried a quiet authority that momentarily unsettled Gerald, though he quickly masked it with a forced smile. "Of course," he said, his condescension barely disguised. "But these pieces are exclusive. Perhaps I can direct you to something more suitable." As the tension between Olivia and Gerald simmered, another subplot unfolded in the background. Clara, unable to ignore her conscience, discreetly approached Olivia. "If there's anything I can assist you with, please let me know," she said warmly, her genuine kindness a stark contrast to Gerald's thinly veiled disdain. Olivia acknowledged Clara with a nod, appreciating the gesture but fully aware of the dynamics at play. Meanwhile, in the boutique's back office, a separate drama was brewing. Evelyn Hart, the store's owner, had arrived unannounced to review the morning's operations. Evelyn prided herself on the boutique's reputation for elegance and exclusivity, but she also valued integrity and fairness, qualities she feared were slipping under Gerald's leadership. From her vantage point, she observed the unfolding scene on the sales floor, her sharp eyes missing nothing. Back in the showroom, Gerald's patience was wearing thin. He stepped closer to Olivia, his voice dropping to a patronizing whisper. "I'm not sure if you're aware, but these dresses start at 5 figures. Perhaps I can recommend a more affordable option." The insult was clear, but Olivia remained composed. She reached into her bag, pulling out a sleek black card and placing it on the counter with deliberate precision. "I'm aware," she said, her tone unyielding. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I'd like to see that gown in my size." The room fell silent, the weight of Olivia's quiet defiance rippling through the boutique. Clara suppressed a smile, while Gerald faltered, his confidence cracking under the pressure. From the back office, Evelyn stepped forward, her heels clicking against the marble as she approached. "Is there a problem here?" Gerald stammered, trying to recover, but Olivia spoke first. "No problem at all," she said, her gaze fixed on Gerald. "Just a misunderstanding about who belongs where." Evelyn's eyes flicked between the two, her expression unreadable. "I see," she said finally, her tone heavy with implication. "Clara, please assist this customer personally." "Gerald, a word in my office." As Gerald followed Evelyn, his face pale, Clara turned to Olivia with a smile. "Let's find you that gown," she said, her voice filled with genuine warmth. Olivia nodded, her composure intact, but inside, she felt a quiet satisfaction. The battle was far from over, but the first victory was hers. In the office, Evelyn closed the door behind Gerald, her disappointment evident. "This is not the standard I expect from my staff," she began, her voice firm. Gerald's protests were cut short as Evelyn continued, her words slicing through his excuses. "You've forgotten what this store represents. Elegance is not just about appearances, it's about character." Back on the sales floor, Olivia found herself drawn into a conversation with Clara, who revealed her own struggles with the boutique's culture. The two women, from vastly different worlds, discovered a shared determination to challenge the status quo. As Olivia left the store, gown in hand, she knew her visit had sparked more than just a personal triumph. It had set in motion a chain of events that would ripple far beyond the gilded walls of Luxe Boutique. The stage was now set for deeper confrontations, alliances, and revelations. Gerald's reckoning with Evelyn was only the beginning, and Olivia's quiet strength had planted seeds of change in Clara and others who had witnessed the day's events. The gleaming facade of Luxe Boutique had begun to crack, revealing the flawed foundations beneath, and the promise of something stronger, more genuine, rising in its place. The bell above the boutique's door chimed softly as Olivia stepped inside, her calm demeanor masking the storm brewing beneath the surface. The opulence of Luxe Boutique was undeniable. Marble floors gleamed under the soft glow of crystal chandeliers, and racks of designer gowns stood like soldiers in formation, each piece a testament to extravagance. Olivia's eyes scanned the room, her confidence unwavering despite the subtle glances from sales associates who immediately assessed her as out of place. Gerald Whitmore, perched behind the counter like a self-appointed king surveying his kingdom, noticed her almost instantly. His lips curled into a faint smirk, a silent judgment passing through his mind. To him, Olivia was an anomaly, a woman whose attire suggested she had wandered into the wrong store. He straightened his tie, his posture stiffening as he prepared to assert his authority. "May I help you?" Gerald's tone was polite on the surface but laced with condescension. Olivia met his gaze, her expression serene but her eyes sharp. "Yes," she replied, her voice calm yet commanding. "I'm looking for a gown for my niece's wedding. Something elegant, timeless." Her words were simple, yet they carried an air of quiet assurance that Gerald found unsettling. As she moved toward a rack of gowns, Gerald intercepted her, his polished shoes clicking against the marble. "Perhaps I could direct you to something more appropriate," he said, gesturing toward a far corner where the less expensive items were displayed. Olivia paused, her hand hovering over a gown crafted from shimmering silk. She turned to face him fully, her calm exterior unshaken. "I'll decide what's appropriate," she said, her voice steady but firm. The tension in the boutique thickened as other customers and staff began to take notice. Gerald's face reddened, his authority challenged in a way he hadn't anticipated. He struggled to maintain his composure, but his next words betrayed him. "I'm not sure if you're aware, but some of these pieces are quite exclusive," he said, his tone dripping with implication. Olivia tilted her head slightly, a faint smile playing on her lips. "I'm aware," she said simply, pulling a gown from the rack and holding it up to inspect the craftsmanship. The subtle power shift in the room was palpable. Gerald, despite his position, suddenly felt as though he were on trial. Meanwhile, the sales associates exchanged uneasy glances, sensing that this interaction was veering into dangerous territory. One of them, a young woman named Clara, hesitated before stepping forward. Clara had seen enough during her time at Luxe Boutique to recognize the undercurrents of prejudice in Gerald's behavior. She approached Olivia cautiously, her voice soft but genuine. "That gown is one of our finest," she said, ignoring Gerald's sharp glance. "Would you like to try it on?" Olivia's smile widened, this time warm and genuine. "Thank you," she said, handing the gown to Clara. As she disappeared into the fitting room, Gerald stood frozen, his authority undermined not only by Olivia's quiet confidence but by the unexpected intervention of his subordinate. When Olivia emerged moments later, the room fell silent. The gown fit her perfectly, its intricate design accentuating her natural elegance. Even Gerald, despite his biases, couldn't deny that she looked stunning. But before he could recover, Olivia walked toward the counter, her posture regal. "I'll take it," she said, placing a sleek black card on the counter. Gerald's eyes widened as he recognized the exclusive card reserved for the wealthiest clientele. His face drained of color as he processed the implications of his earlier behavior. But Olivia wasn't finished. "You know," she said, her tone conversational but edged with steel, "it's fascinating how quickly people make assumptions based on appearances. It's a shame, really. You never know who might be walking through your doors." Her words hung in the air, a quiet rebuke that carried the weight of truth. As Gerald stammered an apology, Olivia turned to Clara. "Thank you for your kindness," she said, her voice warm. "It's rare to find someone who values people over appearances." With that, she walked out of the boutique, leaving a stunned silence in her wake. The events of that morning would ripple through Lux's boutique, forcing its staff, and Gerald in particular, to confront the biases that had long gone unchecked. For Olivia, it was a small victory, but one that carried a profound message. True worth isn't measured by wealth or status, but by the character that lies beneath. As she stepped back onto Fifth Avenue, the crisp autumn air felt lighter, as though the city itself had exhaled a breath it didn't know it was holding. The boutique's door chimed softly as Olivia stepped inside, her calm demeanor masking the quiet storm of anticipation brewing within her. The interior was as opulent as she had imagined. Marble floors gleamed under the soft glow of recessed lighting, and racks of couture dresses stood like soldiers in perfect formation. Yet, for all its beauty, there was an unmistakable chill in the air, a subtle undercurrent of exclusivity that felt less welcoming and more like a velvet rope drawn tight across invisible lines. Gerald Whitmore, stationed near the counter, noticed Olivia immediately. His eyes flicked over her attire with a practiced precision, cataloging every detail: the absence of designer logos, the scuffed sneakers, the simplicity of her sweater. His lips curled into a polite yet condescending smile, the kind reserved for those he deemed unworthy of Luxe Boutique's rarefied atmosphere. He didn't bother to approach her, instead signaling to a junior associate to handle the customer. Meanwhile, Olivia took her time, her fingers brushing lightly against the luxurious fabrics as she moved through the store. She noted the subtle glances from staff, the way their conversations quieted as she passed. It wasn't her first encounter with this kind of treatment, and it likely wouldn't be her last. But today, she decided, she wouldn't let it slide. Today, she had a point to make. At the far end of the boutique, Olivia spotted a gown that seemed to shimmer like liquid gold. It was perfect, elegant, timeless, and worthy of her niece's special day. As she reached for the tag, the junior associate approached, her voice hesitant but rehearsed. "That's part of our exclusive collection," she said, her tone laced with doubt. "It's quite expensive." Olivia met the young woman's gaze, her expression calm but unyielding. "I'd like to try it on," she replied, her voice steady. The associate hesitated, glancing toward Gerald for approval. He strode over, his polished shoes clicking against the marble, and his smile now carried a sharper edge. "Ma'am," Gerald began, his tone dripping with feigned politeness, "perhaps I can direct you to something more suitable." He gestured toward a rack near the entrance, where the boutique's less exclusive and less expensive items were displayed. The insinuation hung in the air like a bad perfume. Olivia tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. "I wasn't aware Luxe Boutique had a policy of determining suitability based on appearance," she said, her words cutting through the tension like a blade. Gerald's smile faltered, but he quickly recovered, his ego unwilling to concede ground. "Of course not," he replied smoothly, though his tone betrayed a hint of irritation. "But we do pride ourselves on offering a personalized shopping experience, and I simply want to ensure you find something within your range." Before Olivia could respond, another voice cut in. "Is there a problem here?" The boutique's owner, a striking woman named Margot Duval, had entered unnoticed. Her sharp eyes took in the scene, and it was clear she had overheard enough to piece together what was happening. Gerald's confident demeanor wavered under her scrutiny. "Not at all, Miss Duval," Gerald stammered, attempting to regain control. "I was just assisting this customer." Margot's gaze shifted to Olivia, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between the two women, an understanding, a recognition. "I see," Margot said coolly, her voice carrying the weight of authority. "Then I trust you won't mind if I personally assist her from here." Gerald's jaw tightened, but he had no choice but to step aside. As Margot led Olivia toward the fitting rooms, she offered a quiet apology. "I'm deeply sorry for his behavior," she said. "It's unacceptable, and it will be addressed." Olivia nodded, her expression softening slightly. "Thank you," she replied. "But I think he's about to learn a far more valuable lesson than any reprimand could teach." As the fitting room door closed behind her, Olivia allowed herself a small smile. The stage was set, and the next act was hers to command. Gerald Whitmore had underestimated her, but he wouldn't make that mistake again, not after the truth of her identity, and her quiet power, came to light. The morning sunlight, filtered through the towering skyline, caught the glass facade of Luxe Boutique, making it gleam like a jewel. Olivia Sinclair, with her quiet confidence and unassuming attire, stepped into the store, her heart steady but her mind alert. The polished floors reflected the opulence around her, but Olivia was no stranger to navigating spaces where wealth and privilege often masked deeper flaws. She had spent a lifetime dismantling barriers, though she hadn't expected today to present yet another battle. Gerald Whitmore stood near the central display, his sharp eyes scanning the room like a hawk. He noticed Olivia immediately, his gaze lingering a moment too long on her casual outfit before dismissing her as unworthy of his attention. He turned instead to greet a pair of women draped in designer coats, their laughter tinkling like the crystal chandeliers above. Olivia, unfazed, began browsing the racks, her discerning eyes searching for the perfect gown for her niece's wedding. It wasn't long before their paths crossed. Gerald, his voice laced with condescension, approached Olivia under the guise of assistance. "Ma'am," he began, his tone clipped, "perhaps you'd be more comfortable browsing our sales section near the back." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Olivia paused, her hand resting on the sleeve of an elegant dress. She met Gerald's gaze, her expression calm but unyielding. "Thank you," she replied evenly, "but I'll let you know if I need help." As the minutes passed, the tension in the boutique became palpable. Other staff members, sensing Gerald's disdain, mirrored his behavior, offering Olivia little more than cursory glances. Meanwhile, a young sales associate named Clara watched the scene unfold from behind the counter. New to the job and uncomfortable with the unspoken rules of this world, she hesitated, torn between following her manager's lead and doing what she felt was right. Olivia's quiet dignity began to draw the attention of other shoppers. A woman nearby, draped in pearls, whispered to her companion, their eyes darting toward Olivia. The atmosphere grew heavier, the weight of judgment pressing down on the room. Yet Olivia moved with grace, her focus unwavering. She selected a gown, its rich emerald fabric shimmering under the boutique's soft lighting, and approached the counter. Gerald intercepted her, his smile thin and insincere. "I'm afraid that piece is part of our exclusive collection," he said, his tone implying she couldn't possibly afford it. Olivia's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. "I'd like to try it on," she said, her voice steady. Gerald hesitated, the conflict between his prejudice and his professional obligations playing out in his expression. Before he could respond, Clara stepped forward, her voice clear and resolute. "Of course, ma'am. Let me show you to a fitting room." The act of kindness shifted the energy in the room. Gerald's jaw tightened, but he stepped aside, his authority momentarily undermined. Olivia followed Clara, her gratitude evident in the slight nod she gave the young woman. In the fitting room, the gown fit perfectly, its elegance a reflection of Olivia's inner strength. As she emerged, the room seemed to hold its breath. Even Gerald, despite himself, couldn't deny how stunning she looked. What followed was a moment of reckoning. Olivia approached the counter once more, her credit card in hand. As Gerald processed the transaction, his demeanor cold but professional, Olivia decided it was time to speak. "It's interesting," she began, her voice carrying just enough weight to command attention, "how often people mistake appearances for substance. I've found that true value lies in character, not couture." Her words hung in the air, a quiet challenge to everyone present. Gerald flushed, his carefully constructed facade cracking under the weight of her calm rebuke. Clara, emboldened, stepped forward to hand Olivia her purchase, her smile genuine. "Thank you for shopping with us," she said, her voice warm. Olivia returned the smile, her gaze lingering on the young woman. "Thank you," she replied, her tone rich with meaning. As Olivia exited the boutique, the door closing softly behind her, the ripples of her presence remained. Clara stood a little taller, inspired by Olivia's quiet strength. Gerald, for all his arrogance, was left to grapple with the uncomfortable truth of his own biases. And the other shoppers, witnesses to the unfolding drama, carried with them a story that would linger long after the day ended. Outside, the city buzzed with life, oblivious to the small but significant victory that had just occurred. Olivia walked away, her steps steady, her spirit unshaken. She had faced prejudice before and would likely face it again, but today, she had reminded everyone in that boutique, and perhaps even herself, that dignity, courage, and integrity were the finest garments of all. The confrontation began the moment Olivia stepped into Lux's boutique. Gerald Whitmore's eyes swept over her, lingering just long enough to betray his disdain. Dressed in her modest attire, Olivia was met with a cold, dismissive glance. "May I help you?" Around them, other customers and staff paused, sensing the tension that had suddenly filled the air. Olivia, ever composed, met his gaze with quiet confidence. "I'm looking for a gown," she replied, scanning the racks of luxurious fabrics. Gerald smirked, his prejudice on full display. "Our pieces are quite exclusive," he said, his voice loud enough to draw attention. "Perhaps you'd be more comfortable browsing elsewhere." The words hung in the air, cutting like glass. Olivia, however, remained unfazed. She had faced far greater challenges in her life than the small-mindedness of a man blinded by his own biases. A young sales associate, Emily, watched the exchange from across the room. Unlike Gerald, she had heard of Olivia Sinclair, the tech mogul whose philanthropy had changed countless lives. Recognizing her, Emily stepped forward. "Miss Sinclair," she said warmly, ignoring Gerald's glare. "It would be an honor to assist you. We've just received a collection that I think you'll love." Gerald's face flushed with embarrassment, but Olivia's calm demeanor never wavered. As Emily guided Olivia through the boutique, Gerald's discomfort grew. Whispers began to circulate among the staff and customers. The truth of Olivia's identity spread like wildfire, and with it came the realization of Gerald's grave mistake. By the time Olivia selected a gown, a stunning piece of hand-embroidered silk, Gerald's arrogance had crumbled into shame. At the counter, as Olivia handed over her black card, she turned to Gerald. "You judged me by my appearance," she said, her voice steady but firm. "But true value isn't something you can see. It's something you live." Her words, spoken with grace, struck a chord with everyone present. Gerald stammered an apology, but Olivia had already turned her attention back to Emily, thanking her for her kindness and professionalism. The fallout was swift. The boutique's owner, alerted to the incident by a flurry of social media posts, arrived within the hour. Gerald was promptly dismissed, his actions deemed unacceptable in a store that prided itself on luxury and inclusivity. Emily, on the other hand, was promoted, her integrity and customer-first attitude earning her the recognition she deserved. As Olivia exited the boutique, gown in hand, she paused to address the gathered crowd. "We all have a responsibility to challenge prejudice when we see it," she said. "Kindness and respect cost nothing, but their value is immeasurable." Her words sparked a ripple of applause, a moment of unity in a world too often divided. The events of that day sent shockwaves through the industry. Luxe Boutique implemented mandatory diversity training, and other high-end retailers followed suit. For Olivia, the experience reaffirmed her belief in standing up for what's right, even in the face of ignorance. And for Gerald, it was a harsh but necessary lesson in humility. Let this story be a reminder: never underestimate the power of quiet dignity to dismantle arrogance, or the strength of one voice to inspire change. Stand up, speak out, and demand better, because the cost of ignorance is far too high. The confrontation at Luxe Boutique unfolded with all the subtlety of a thunderstorm. Olivia Sinclair, with her calm demeanor and unshakable poise, became the unwitting target of Gerald Whitmore's thinly veiled disdain. From the moment she stepped inside, his eyes darted to her unassuming attire, and his lips curled into a dismissive smirk. He approached her with the practiced condescension of someone who believed he had already assessed her worth. "May I help you?" Olivia, unbothered by his attitude, explained her purpose. She was looking for a gown for her niece's wedding. Gerald's response was a masterclass in passive-aggressive prejudice. He steered her toward the clearance section, muttering something about budget-friendly options. The other patrons, draped in designer labels, watched the exchange with a mixture of curiosity and discomfort, their silence complicit in the unfolding injustice. But Olivia was not one to be rattled. Instead of reacting with anger, she decided to let her actions speak louder than words. She selected a gown from the boutique's most exclusive collection, a shimmering masterpiece that seemed to catch the light with every movement. When Gerald attempted to steer her away, she firmly insisted on trying it on. The staff, sensing the tension, reluctantly complied. As Olivia emerged from the fitting room, the gown cascading around her like liquid silver, the room fell silent. She was a vision of elegance, her quiet confidence eclipsing even the most ostentatious displays of wealth. Gerald, however, remained unimpressed. "That dress is quite expensive," he said, his tone laced with doubt. Olivia responded with a simple smile and handed over her black Amex card, a subtle yet powerful reminder that appearances can be deceiving. The transaction was completed in stunned silence, but Olivia wasn't finished. She turned to Gerald and, in a voice as steady as a heartbeat, said, "I hope this experience teaches you to reconsider how you judge people. True worth isn't about what someone wears or how they look, it's about their character." Her words hung in the air, a quiet rebuke that resonated far beyond the walls of the boutique. In the weeks that followed, Luxe Boutique found itself at the center of a social media storm. A fellow customer had discreetly filmed the encounter, and the video went viral, sparking a larger conversation about prejudice and elitism in high-end retail. Gerald was quietly dismissed, his polished image tarnished by his own actions. The boutique's management issued a public apology and implemented mandatory sensitivity training for all employees. As for Olivia, she attended her niece's wedding in the gown that had sparked the confrontation, radiating the same grace and dignity that had carried her through that fateful day. She became a quiet icon of resilience and self-respect, her story inspiring countless others to challenge discrimination wherever they encountered it. The gleaming facade of Luxe Boutique remained, but its foundation had been irrevocably altered. The lesson Olivia imparted lingered like a faint perfume, reminding everyone who entered that true class is not defined by wealth or status, but by how one treats others. And for those who still clung to their prejudices, the cost of ignorance would always outweigh the price of any gown. In the end, Olivia's story was more than just a tale of triumph over prejudice, it was a call to action. It urged us all to look beyond the surface, to challenge our assumptions, and to remember that every person we encounter has a story worth hearing. Because in the fabric of humanity, it's the threads of kindness, respect, and understanding that truly make us shine.